How's it guys? Welcome back to the channel. I thought what might be a good thing to do, seeing as it's been a bit of a topic of discussion lately and seems to come up every time that there are selections in the Springbok team, is to sort of do a thing about what it takes to become a Springbok and how that process and the ingenious process that Rassie and them have at the moment to make sure that players come through and are ready when they have action in the team. We've seen unbelievable success and an unbelievable amount of depth, and the Springbok rugby is certainly in the healthiest spot it's been for a very long time. That being said, there is a whole process that the Boks have worked out for to make sure that players come through the ranks and come through and talent doesn't get lost. Now, I suppose the proviso to that is that there will always be one or two players that do get lost to other teams, lost to other countries, but the amount of talent that South Africa brings through, the depth that they have at the moment, you could probably go through, and if you watch my video when the Bok squad was announced, there's probably 5 or 6 players in each position that the Boks can call on at the moment, and that's not even counting the unlucky players of which you can easily select a match day 23, and maybe that's a subject for another video, match day 23 of unlucky Boks who aren't in the current squad. Maybe talk about that a bit. But yeah, we're going into a test week now. I thought, there's been a lot of discussion about squads and how they're selected, and I thought maybe let's it's a bit of a deep dive of this into how exactly a player becomes a Springbok, and I thought maybe some of you might be interested in that. So let me know in the comments if you do and what you'd like to know, and we'll try and do some more of this. I have got some feedback, and this is something that I get asked quite a lot by people, and especially people trying to understand selections of players. And so hopefully this video helps fill that void a bit. Okay, we're going to start off with a video clip from Jacques Nienaber from the World Cup last year, which where he talks about what the EPD has done. And the EPD is, of course, the Elite Player Development Program that SA Rugby has at the moment. It's a program where they identify players from as young as 16 years old and put them on a fast track, help them with nutrition and things like that, and put them on a fast track to becoming a professional rugby player. It's an exceptional program. It goes on, a lot of it goes on behind the scenes, and a lot of it gets done without the knowledge of a lot of people. And I think it's a fundamental thing behind the scenes that's brought us a lot of talent through in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, EPD programs is the early player development program. So before I joined the Springboks, I was the high performance manager at SA Rugby, and the EPD programs. Rassie was what was his title then? He was general manager of rugby, and I was the high performance manager underneath him, and so yeah, the guys that, how can I put it, Damian Willemse was an EPD2 program when I started coaching him at SA schools, R.G. Snyman, Mani Libok, J.C. Creel, Andre Pollard, Malcolm Marx, Thomas de Tooy, they all guys that I've worked with since they were 17 in the EPD program. That's what probably makes it so special, Even Sia I met when he was at the Institute. He was under 19 at Western Province. Frans Malherbe, same. So a lot of the players that's currently in this group, and that's why I enjoyed the time with them. I just sat in the change room, and we had a cool drink in the change room after one of the training sessions, just looking at the players, and I think, yes, I have a story of every single one. Oxnitsche, Villagers Rugby Club, first scrumming session, Michael Kumberai was there, and I remember, who's this guy from HTS Louis Botha, can actually speak a little bit of Afrikaans, If you think where he's from, I've got a story about every single one because of EPD, because when they were nothing, and when they were just dreaming to become Springboks, you start working with them, and you know what? Fair play to them, they haven't changed. They don't have egos now. Like Mani Libok, somebody asked about a guy like Mani, like Kobus. Okay, obviously he's a little bit older than them. But the same Mani that was 17 years old playing for the SA school side with Damian Willemse, they're the same people now. They haven't become big-headed. They don't have an ego. If they're not selected, like Sia said, they take it on the chin. They know that it's for South Africa, just like they did it back then. So yeah, it was special working in the EPD programs, and even with the women. Obviously, I had I coached the sevens in women's and the 15s, and so I had an unbelievable coaching pathway with that, teaching kids, or not kids, but school kids, developing them, see how they grow as persons, how they become fathers, how they become men. You know, it's unbelievable to be part of it. And that started way back in 2013, I think. So it's 10 years now. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start off. So what happens behind the scenes is that at school level, there's obviously a number of players who are exceptional. And it come through some of the elite schools that we have, and we have quite a few of them in South Africa. And they get identified by the various weeks, whether it's the school derbies, whether it's the school festival weeks, or whether they get identified via the Craven weeks or the Grand Como weeks, or those type of weeks. There are players that definitely catch the eye of selectors. Those players, those names get put up to the EPD. There's specifically, I think it's under the guise of Nico Sauerfontein and Louis Kuhn behind the scenes. They take a lot of that sort of talent and they start sifting it. And there's probably about 100 players. I'm not sure the exact amount, but there are players that are identified and they get brought into what they call green and gold squads. Now that, I think the one is the under 16 squad and the other one's the under 18 squad. I'm not quite sure which is which. I might be wrong, so let me rather just leave it as that. And my understanding of it is those players get given the support from SA Rugby. They often are in elite schools, but if they are not, if they're in a smaller school, in a smaller province, and they need some help, they get given that sort of assistance, nutrition programs, gym programs, those sort of things that they might not have at their own schools. They get given that in that green and gold group. And those guys get watched. And what happens there is what Rassie often refers to as a roadmap. That gets started on them. Now that roadmap that gets started on the players is just basically a career path. They keep a file, document players' weight, height, anything they feel that the player needs help with, etc. And it just starts that roadmap that gets catalogued at SA Rugby for right till when they retire. So that process starts at under 16 level, and that's really a place where they've been able to capture and develop a lot of talent. Now what happens, these players go through high school, they go into their various provinces after high school, they get signed up by that, and they are still the property of the provinces. But in a number of the cases, there are players what they call, and you'll hear this word a lot, roadmaps, we hear a lot when you watch a press conference with Rassie, and you'll hear the words pony money every now and again. Pony money is an easy concept. It's players of national interest, and that's where the pony money comes from. Now, what they used to do in the past, just to give you a bit of background, SA Rugby tried to keep Springboks in South Africa, so they used to top up their contracts. So the SA Rugby would have a contract with I think it was Bob Skinstad, for instance, which on top of his Western Province contract would be that Springbok contract, and that one would keep him in South Africa. What they found though is as the rand depreciated, as things got more expensive, this became much more expensive exercise to try and keep 20 or 30 players in South Africa. So when Rassie came in as director of rugby or general manager of rugby, he changed that. What he did was they decided to spread it a lot wider. They're not going to be able to keep a lot of players in the country. So some players will go overseas and will get better offers and they'll go. But for those that stay in South Africa, what they do is they top up the contracts. And there's around about, I think the last count I saw was about 95 players, almost 100 players, who are on these pony contracts. So instead of having 20 players take a huge slice of pie and divide it between them, they split that pie a lot bigger now. So what happens a lot more now is that unions are allowed to use third-party contracts. And SA Rugby tops it up. So even Etzebeth, maybe that's a bad example, well, he is one of them, I'm just not sure of the figures. But say a player gets X and SA Rugby will say, well, to keep him in the country, we'll add 2 million a year to his current contract. Now, there have been some problems with that. The unions say that these pony contracts get reviewed every year, which becomes an issue because if you sign a player, you want to sign him on 3-4 year contract. So if he falls out of favour and doesn't get that money anymore, then the union is left to foot the bill. But those are the type of things that need to be sorted out, and I know there's a lot of discussions going on at SA Rugby and with the franchises at the moment for that. But anyway, back to the pony money. Player X gets his provincial contract or franchise contract, and he gets an extra amount of money placed on top by SA Rugby. That's to keep him in the country. The roadmap is still being followed. There are regular discussions on pony players with the director of rugby and the 4 franchise coaches and any other players who are on that program. We don't get to see that list. That's a list for SA Rugby. But I know the list goes from under 19 players to under 18 players. So some of those guys who come out the green and gold squad automatically get given a bit of an extra boost on their contracts to keep them in South Africa. That also helps keep a lot of guys here. You're not going to keep everybody. Some of them will go overseas, of course. But that money, that extra, in their cases, under 19s or under 20s, you're talking about maybe 50,000 Rand extra onto a contract per month, or well, 100,000 over a year. That's the sort of figures you're talking about, right up to in the millions for some of the Springbok players. Now, all this time, the roadmap carries on at SA Rugby. So they've got a file on a player, their roadmap as they call it, and they plot his sort of rise. Some players you're always going to get the shooting stars as they call it, the Damien Willemses, the Ethan Hookers, the Sasha Feinberg Mngomazulus. Those type of players come through the ranks, and you can see they obviously need to play at a high level much quicker, and you do get them, and they've done them pretty well, as you probably noticed over the last 6 years. So those files get built up, and those players get sort of developed at their provinces. Still their franchise and their provinces thing to develop them, but there's regular meetings with SA Rugby's Mobi squad. You have coaches who come around and deliver messages from the national squad, tell players where they need to work on, and sort of almost give that extra voice, because often what happens, a player might be frustrated in his provincial setup or his franchise setup, and when the BOK coaches come around, or when the Mobi unit coaches come around, and often it's people at the moment, like a guy like Dwayne Vermeulen's in that. He roves around to the different squads, etc., and gives input, etc. And to have somebody else, a voice there that's involved in the national setup, often does better for a younger player. So we see that happening a lot. It's also worth remembering that different provinces and different teams have different goals, different demands in their players, different seasons, and of course injuries play a part as well, but there's different roles of development. For instance, a player coming through at the Bulls, for instance, like Cameron Hanekom, sort of was given the opportunity, but in another scenario, at the Stormers, for instance, a young number 8 probably won't get that opportunity because of an Evan Roos who's there, or because of another player who's there. In Durban, Lukanyo Am or Makazola Mapimpi who's there already. And franchise coaches will play their players. They've got to win. You've got to realize that as well. They've got goals. Coaches don't get hired and fired on results, and those results determine how they play their team. So a shrewd coach makes space for those players to come through, but it's not always possible, depending on where they are in the competition, how their seasons are going, etc. So that's where a lot of these players, you got to realize that sometimes the path is not as straight as we all would like. We all like a young talent like Sasha or Damon Willemse or Cameron Hanekom to come through and suddenly get a chance to play and establish themselves in the starting lineup and get that sort of the great sort of experience that every player needs. But that doesn't always happen. So that's where these roadmaps become invaluable, because the BOK coaches look at them, and they're not just looking for now. At the moment, they're looking for 2027. So they're looking in 4 years' time, who's going to be the next guy. And as Jacques Ninalba once told me, he said, it's about also leaving for the next coach, to make sure you don't go in what's happened in Springbok rugby in the past, that there's a void as soon as a BOK coach is fired. Okay, so we get to the point where that player is now broken through to the squad. The Boks have got their roadmap on him. He's developing. He's getting good game time. And then the Springbok coaches have what they call alignment camps. Now, I'm sure everybody's been interested to see who's there in alignment camps. They have them a couple of times a year. Whenever there's an open weekend, and the Bok coaches can use that weekend to have the players over for 2 or 3 days. And there's some specific things in those alignment camps which are rather different to other training camps that teams hold.
If you don't get a group of guys together that trust the other one, no matter what it looks like, and be as skinny as But when you look over your shoulder, he's there.
For one, they don't always like to make the names public, and it's understandable because this is not a selection. It's not a squad that's selected, and it's not really there to give up hope, because often what happens when squads are selected, the first thing that fans and pundits and everybody does is says, okay, yeah, so-and-so's in, so-and-so's out, that must mean X or Y. And these alignment camps are not for that. Those alignment camps are, first of all, to give the Bok coaches a chance to work with the younger players, to have them around in the Springbok environment, to teach them how that environment works, to have them rub shoulders with the other Springbok players, a lot more experienced players, and to obviously share game plans, share goals, share the season. There's a lot of other little things that happens. There's administrative stuff that gets done. Guys, sort out passport numbers, and it's going to sound like arbitrary, some of the stuff. Profile pictures. Those profile pictures you see a lot used in the media and on TV. Those get done in those alignment camps. And often the guy gets dressed in a Bok jersey and might not make it Bok team. But at least they know they've got a photo of him if he does. So there's a lot of those little small things that happen there. And then obviously we're not privy to all the information. There is obviously other stuff that happens, but it gives the Bok coaches a good chance to work with younger players in an environment where there's no pressure, and to give them information that they feel they need.
En dit is elke involvement wat jy het in die game word gecalculate, en dit word op die ou einde al jou battles word bymekaar getel en jou tyd wat jy gespeel het.
It's a guy's effectiveness in his position and how long does it take to be effective again. Every how many seconds do you do something positive, successful, and what your job is. The longer it takes for you to do it again, obviously the worse it is.
This includes also having one-on-ones with players. This includes and telling them what they need to fix in their games, where they stand in the Springbok setup, and what they're going to do to get into the Bok setup if they're new. And a lot of it as well is theoretical, but a lot of it they do have some practical, some training every now and again, but they try and keep the training to a minimum. Because of the risk of injuries. So a lot of it's just walkthroughs, get to know the coaches. In the last couple of camps, for instance, there's a couple of new coaches. There's Jerry Flannery and Tony Brown who are with the Boks, and the players get to know them as well, even the senior players who haven't worked with them. All this, of course, leads to players obviously getting to know coaches, feeling more comfortable, and a lot of the time, when you walk into an environment that you've got so little time in the week before a test because of Regulation 9. Boks only allowed to get their players 6 days before a test, so on the Sunday in the test week. So this often allows the guys, to give more time to get to know players, to just form that bond, that helps along the way for players to walk in and be comfortable in the environment straight away. And that's a huge thing. Now, at the same time, the roadmaps just continue, and players who aren't invited to the alignment camps, they get monitored. We used to have players are monitored in Europe because often they can't come to the camps, and there's a relationship that goes on with their clubs as well. Often you'll see that they don't pick everybody for a certain test, especially if it's outside a test window, and that's also to maintain the friendly relationship with a lot of the clubs, because they own the players at the end of the day. Their professional contracts are with the players, and they can easily turn around and say no. Now, that's unlikely to happen here in South Africa because the franchises all buy into it. But in a number of occasions with the overseas-based players, that is a concern, and that becomes a real problem for the Boks if they don't have those good relationships with those clubs. So those roadmaps carry on, and when they say they carry on not just for the pony players, they carry on for anybody who's coming to the Boks orbit. You can think of the likes of Tyrone Green at Harlequins, Jarno Christus at Northampton. There's a number of those sort of players who put their hands up and maybe on the fringes of that, and that helps them track what the guys are doing, how good they're doing, etc., because it's not always easy to follow all the leagues around the world, and to get a good idea of what they want in a player. And then the squad is chosen. It's all the anticipation. Player gets chosen for a Springbok squad. There's all the excitement about it. It's probably toned down a bit lately because there's not so many shocks. There's a lot more consistency. And there's always new players. There's always hope for new blood to come through. And especially now, in 2024, We're going to probably see a lot more players being introduced through the year. You got to remember the history as well of this. After their 2019 World Cup win, the Boks definitely didn't have any rugby in 2020 because of COVID. 2021 they had the British and Irish Lions to watch out for, so there was no chance there to develop players. So they only tried in 2022 against Wales. They had that famous test in Bloemfontein where Wales won, where they blooded 18 new players in one game, and obviously there was a bit of a blowback for that. They didn't win the game, but that game, for instance, long term helped South African rugby be a lot better in depth and helped a lot of players come through the system. And now where we're sitting now, the fruits of that game, even though nobody likes to lose a test, are being felt now because Springbok rugby is in a very healthy place. Now, there's a lot of expectation this year that a lot of players are going to play, especially with the test against Portugal in Bloemfontein. So listen to Russie's answer of this past week of how they're going to play, the plan to blood young players, how this island test is probably one of the toughest series they're going to have this year. And that's what they're going to focus on. They want to win that one. So we don't expect to see too many young players play in that test series, but have a listen to what he says about how they'll manage the young players going through the year.
It's actually easy compared to 2019 because we didn't have a 2020. And now I've said this a lot. But we suddenly have 30 test matches, which we can juggle. And we had to win 2021 and 2022. We at some stages had to play a Wales team and then put a totally different team play against Wales. You know, at Argentina we played a away team. So suddenly now we can filter players slowly into the oven and see if they can come out right on the other side. You know, I will never forget. I played with a few players. I remember Hafi Tutuwe was one player that he just got thrown in there in New Zealand and his career was over. You know, so we really lost 2020 and we couldn't build a hell of a lot. But we now have 2024 where we have games like the Wales game where we could drive 4 players. Now we've got this series where we've got 4 new players also. Then suddenly there's 8 new ones. And then you've got the Portugal test match. Then you might try 4 or 5 players again. All of a sudden you've got 50 new players whose caps already. And then obviously Ireland's massive. It's the biggest competition for us this year. But then after that it's the Rugby Championship, and you know they you will actually pick the players that really did well when they got the new players who got the chances when they played against Wales and when they played against Portugal and when they played against Ireland. So it's a not much easier system to have than the previous World Cup cycle.
Another interesting thing that happens a lot of the time, and you'll hear Rassie talk about it now as well, is the Boks bring those younger players through. At the moment, Jan-Hendrik Wessels is with the team. The last couple of weeks, Andre Hicofento was there. Both 2 young up-and-coming players. They weren't going to play in the test against Wales, or Andre Hicofento wasn't going to play. Jan-Hendrik Wessels is probably not going to play against Ireland, but they're with the team, they train, they assume different roles. They experience the entire Bok week. They experience a build-up to a test. They see the standards that are set in the squad, and that's all to prepare them for when it's their chance. It's not something that's new. It's not something that the pressure gets to you, and it's also to help you just thrive in that environment rather than be nervous, etc. So a lot of those players learn from that, but don't take my word for it. Yeah, how Rassie described it this week.
Rugby or rugby. We have no control over what the franchises do, where they play players. We have a pony system, which is players of national interest, which we contribute money to. When a player plays SA schools and he goes to a province and is in the under 20 setup, if he's good enough, he makes hopefully the previous year our SA schools team and then our junior Springbok team, and he goes into the academy. And then, you know, we even for a young guy, we give a pony contribution. Sometimes just 100,000 or 60,000 or 150,000, and then you get the big rollers, the guys who win World Cups, who starts for you, like who's playing in South Africa, that we contribute a few million towards their salary. So Jan-Hendrik Wessels was one that we earmarked through our EPD system since 2013 when we started. and he was always a loose head. He always also played locked. He actually played loose head with Andre Venter at Grey. I think they're a year apart, but they packed next to one another. So we had Joseph Dueva now in the system for 4 weeks, 4 test weeks. He was involved. And prior to the World Cup, he was involved in alignment camps and normal camps. We now had Andre Venter involved on a tour, on a match day, on a warm-up, on an alignment camp, on a training week, and in match week, and traveling. So we now know how that is. He's got that experience. Grobis is obviously one of the standout hookers. I don't think anybody can argue that the Bulls went the deepest in the competition, and their lineouts was definitely good. I don't know if it's Andries or maybe the lineout caller, but Grobis has definitely improved a hell of a lot, and is a straightforward third choice at this stage for us. But then the nice thing now about Dan Hendrik is he's covering for you 1 and 2, which makes the selection, if we go to 2027, it's not to say that Andre Venter can't grab that number 2 jersey. It's not to say that Pongi is definitely still going to make the next World Cup. It's not to say that Malcolm's knee won't back up again. So what we're trying to do is expose guys to our Springbok environment as much as possible. Now, if you think about it, it's actually just 2 weeks that Jan Hendrik Wessels is with us and will be with us. And then maybe he might play against Portugal. Now, Andre Venter was with us 2 weeks. And Neertje Forsier was with us 2 weeks. Tux was with us 2 weeks. When we go to Durban, we're just going to pull him in. Sometimes during this week here, we might just draft a player like Horn in and come and train with us here. So, of course, they're local. It doesn't cost a lot of money. So, the group is 39, but the group is actually 46 because we are preparing not just for Ireland, we are also preparing for Portugal.
One of the interesting ones is that being close to this box squad for so long now, you know that those players are going to play against Portugal. Probably you know more or less who they are. With an asterisk, there's one proviso. Of course, if all the plans go to play in the Irish series, then the box will blood players, and it's always been this way. It's been the situation where the box have always sort of worked around where they've given the players the plans right at the beginning of the season, the squads that's selected. And they've kept to those plans, and that sort of consistency has been a huge hallmark for them and probably a huge part of their success. Players know when they're going to play, they know where they stand, they know where they are in the pecking order at the Springboks. And the proviso is always there that if results go their way and everything goes well, then that doesn't change. So obviously if they lose a test series to Ireland, there's going to be more pressure on them. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully the young players can be blooded against Portugal. And Springbok Rugby just adds another layer of depth at that stage. What's interesting is that a lot of these players in the squad, as you saw in Chasing the Sun, they have to assume roles of the opposition, so they get given homework. It's no longer the days of standing holding tackling bags. They physically, actively have to be involved in that, and they have to become the opposition. They have to study the opposition players they're going to play against the Springboks, and they have to fulfill that role. That came quite clear in the Chasing the Sun series, that's what happens a lot of the time. And the box, that level of detail is amazing. You hear players say it every single time about how much detail there is in the Springboks setup as opposed to franchise level. And then finally, I think just the last thing, I think probably the nicest thing, I often get comments about quotas and transformation and things like that. The one good thing that the Boks have done over the last 6 years is they've taken that whole discussion out of it. We've got enough players of merit, everybody's selected on merit in that team, and everybody is good enough. There's none of that talk that we used to have 10, 20 years ago where players would be doubted by certain people. I think back-to-back World Cup wins does that. You can hardly doubt them, and they know what they're doing. So it's hard to argue with that. So if you still believe there is transformation, I think you have to sit down and watch Chasing the Sun again. You have to sit down and you have to watch any press conference with any player. You have to watch player seasons and you'll realize you're pretty wrong. Anyhow, not to labour that point too much, but it was just to mention it because last week again with the squad selections got a couple of people saying that. And I must admit the rest of the comments shouted them down, but there still are people that won't see the wood for the trees, so to speak. Anyway, the squad is Springbok Rugby's extremely healthy. The system is working at the moment. 2 World Cups proves that. Number 1 in the world. You can't argue with that. The challenge now is to become that team that's dominant between World Cups. And to do that, you need your depth fire. To do that, you need as well to have younger players who are coming through or pushing the older players and making sure that renewal process happens, that whoever takes over the jersey is just as equipped as the guys who won 2 World Cups as well. But it's going well at the moment, and as long as it continues, it's a great process. So hopefully this helps. If there's anything else you want to know, please let me know in the comments. And if there's anything you want to comment about the Springbok process, let me know as well. I read all the comments. It's great to hear from you guys. And if you haven't smashed that subscribe button, please do. There'll be lots more videos like this going on.